Cyclist Mark Cavendish finally wins an Olympic medal, the 41st for Team GB, who are still second in the medal table. Cavendish took silver in the velodrome, despite being involved in a crash during the final race.
That's really nice, you know. Still think gold will finish the collection, but that's just me, you know.
And there's the first ever British medal in the women's hammer. Sophie Hitchon took bronze, breaking the British record with her final throw. Diving for the finish line, Shawnee Miller from the Bahamas snatches gold in the 400 metres by just 0.07 seconds. And there are high hopes for more gold medals for Team GB on day 11 of the Rio Olympics. Also on the programme this lunchtime, inflation rises by more than expected to 0.6%, partly driven by higher fuel prices. More price rises for commuters. Regulated rail fares will go up by nearly 2% next year.
In the south, signs that Brexit has a cost. A local firm has shelved multi-million-pound investment plans following a slump in orders from Europe. And a health warning for anyone tempted to cool off by wild swimming this summer.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the BBC News at 1. One of Britain's most successful cyclists, Mark Cavendish, has finally achieved his ambition of an Olympic medal. In his third Games, he won silver last night in the Omnium, cycling's version of the heptathlon. Team GB go into day 11 of the Olympics in Rio in second place in the medal table with 16 golds. Among those hoping to add to that haul today are cyclists Jason Kenny and Laura Trott, while Giles Scott is guaranteed a gold in the men's Finn class sailing event. Our sports correspondent Patrick Geary reports.
It's taken 3 games worth of laps, scraps and mishaps, but finally Mark Cavendish has the one thing he was missing, an Olympic medal. Silver, not gold, but in the Omnium you really have to earn it. One event, but 6 challenges. Cavendish was third going into day 2. During the flying lap, he took off, landing in outright second. Final destination, the points race. Crowded, chaotic, crucial. Points are awarded for a series of sprints, but when lots of speed meets little space, this can happen.
2 riders have gone, 3 riders down. Viviani's down, O'Shea is down.
Cavendish's fault, he escaped punishment though. The man in white and blue here was the race leader, Elia Viviani. He recovered to pedal away with gold. Cavendish was hunting silver. He'd left the Tour de France early to focus on this event. 1 point on the final lap would get him second.
Mark Cavendish scoops up the final point on offer, which makes sure that he has the silver medal.
A multiple world champion, a winner of 30 stages of the Tour de France, and now, at last, an Olympic medalist. 8 years ago, Mark Cavendish said there was nothing for him on the track. Does he now finally mean it?
Can't do that cycle thing again, you know, that Olympic cycle. Well, I don't know, I said that 8 years ago. We never know, you know. I say I'm going to retire at some point, but I know I'll have a month at home and people get sick of me and tell me to go back on my bike.
Laura Trott is only halfway through her Omnium Odyssey, but is on course for history. She finished the elimination race leading the competition. If she stays there, she'll become the first British woman to win 4 gold medals, just a few days after becoming the first to win 3. There are now 2 women with that number, thanks to another Trott. This may be Charlotte Dujardin's final dance with Vallegro. Retirement may loom for this golden horse. If so, their final steps together were memorable. Their partnership has played out like a film. Gold in London, then the horse Dujardin knows as Blueberry was almost sold. Now they needed one of their best performances for victory in Rio. The art of dressage is to make it look like the horse is doing it all alone. Sport at its most subtle.
93.928. Oh, now they've got to go. Can they ever take that away?
No one could. A great Olympic partnership had delivered gold again. One engagement completed, another now to honour. The message on her boyfriend Dean's T-shirt here, can we get married now?
He's made it very public now that I have to marry him, so yeah, it's been on the cards after London that we were going to get married, and we just haven't ever really had the time to do it, so now it's going to be definitely done next year.
There will, you feel, always be 3 in that marriage. No British woman had ever emerged from a hammer cage with an Olympic medal. Sophie Hitchen combines pirouettes with power. As a girl, she was a ballerina. Before this throw, she was 5th and needed a British record for bronze.
Is it big enough? It is! Sophie Hitchen has saved her best for last.
I had to double take a little bit because, you know, it was just incredible. And to see the number 3 there and a national record, I couldn't be happier. And you know, my coach, Tor, has stuck with me through the bad times and obviously the good times.
The inimitable Mr. Gustafsson persuaded Hitchen to keep going. Like Cavendish on the track, there were times when she wanted to quit. Proof now of the power of persistence. Patrick Geary, BBC News.
Well, elsewhere in Rio, Brazil celebrated its first athletics medal of the Games. Thiago da Silva thrilled the home crowd by triumphing in the pole vault. He broke the Olympic record with a jump of 6.03 metres, beating the defending champion. And Shawnee Miller of the Bahamas won gold in the 400 metres, but stunned the crowd with a very unusual technique, as Joe Wilson reports.
Now then, here we go. Thiago da Silva never expected gold. He suddenly had a chance, but he needed to clear a bar 10 centimetres higher than he'd ever vaulted. Higher, in fact, than anyone had ever cleared at the Olympics. Higher, in short, than his dreams.
Second attempt. He's got it! No way in your life!
Oh yes, 6 metres 3 centimetres, midnight in Rio, and for the home nation, the Olympics had woken up. But it wasn't over. Here's the man the world thought would win. Renaud Lavallenie, world record holder, now trying for 6 metres 8, trying to concentrate and hearing the stadium boo. Not what athletics expects.
I think. Yeah, it's that's not right.
It was a predicament the vaulter later likened to being Jesse Owens in Berlin in 1936, Hitler's Olympics. Well, off he went.
No, he's knocked it off! And Lavallenie is out!
This was the sporting scene normally reserved in Brazil for football exclusively, and a crowd perhaps accustomed to behaving accordingly. The first Brazilian man to win an Olympic gold in athletics for over 30 years.
Oh my word, what drama!
All over the world, athletes come to their sport in different ways.
The Olympic 800-metre final, David Rudisha defending his title.
David Rudisha was coached by an Irish missionary in Kenya. His style in the 800 metres is to hit the front and stay there. Retaining the Olympic title he won in London, you're watching the strides of an all-time great. Most runners win on 2 feet. Most.
Rudisha wins it! Just beginning to separate themselves.
Then there's the women's 400 metres final. Shawnee Miller of the Bahamas in turquoise green, fast approaching alongside her, American Allyson Felix. Miller and Felix, Felix and Miller, with that finishing line coming nearer.
On the line, oh! Shawnee Miller hurls herself at the line. Has she won it with that?
Well, yes, she had. The swimming pool dive, Miller says, was really quite accidental. Her torso carrying her when her legs had given up and her mind was blank. Even the most esteemed experts had never seen anything quite like it.
Before I came in the race, I told myself, you know, this is it. This is the moment I've been waiting for. And, you know, I just gave it my all. And I promised my coach that I was going to bring back the gold, and now I did. And I'm just so thankful.
204 kilos, 32 stone if you prefer, that's what he lifts. Then he really moves. David Katatoya of Kiribati didn't win a weightlifting medal, but he wanted to ensure the world noticed him. Hence the routine. He dances to highlight the plight of his Pacific island nation, under threat from rising sea levels. You can be surprisingly light on your feet, with issues which are simultaneously weighty. Joe Wilson, BBC News.
Well, Team GB has high hopes for more medals this afternoon. In a moment, we'll get the latest from the sailing venue, where Giles Scott is guaranteed a gold. First, let's go to the Olympic Park. Our sports correspondent, Natalie Perks, is there, and all eyes on the cyclists. Natalie.
Well, the velodrome has been the scene, hasn't it, of so much glory for Team GB, but again, tonight could see more. Imagine the household trophy cabinet of Laura Trott and Jason Kenny. The pair are engaged, of course. Now, tonight, Jason Kenny will go for his 3rd gold of the Games, the 6th gold overall in the Keirin. If he wins that 6th gold, that will equal Sir Chris Hoy's record. And then you've got Laura Trott, who's going in the Omnium. She leads the overnight standings. That would be her 2nd gold of the Games, her 4th overall. That would make her the British woman with the most golds ever. She'd already done that in this Games, and then Charlotte Dujardin had equalled it. So tonight she could go one better again. So just imagine their trophy cabinet. I think I say this every day, but it really is another very busy day here in Rio. So here goes. We've also got Jack Law in the final of the men's 3-metre springboard. Remember, he and Chris Mears, his synchro partner, won gold. We've also got Nicola Adams. She begins her defence finally of her Olympic boxing title. Remember, she is the world champion. Joshua Boazzi is guaranteed a medal in the men's light heavy semi-final, but he says bronze simply not good enough. Robbie Grabbitts goes in the final of the men's high jump. He won a bronze in London, and remember, of course, Usain Bolt goes in the men's 200-metre heats today. We've also got Simone Biles, of course, away from Team GB. She proved she was human after all last night when she fell on the beam, but she goes for her 4th gold of the Games tonight in her favourite apparatus, the floor. And breathe, back to you.
Natalie, not for long. Thank you very much, Natalie Perks. Let's head as well to Wira Davis. He's at the sailing venue, Marina de Gloria. Wira, another medal guaranteed. Explain how so. Explain what's happening there later.
Yeah, well, here we are at Guanabara Bay, and Sugarloaf behind me. Probably never been a more spectacular backdrop for a sailing event. Of course, there have been concerns over water quality in recent months, but that hasn't bothered too many of the British sailors, in particular Giles Scott. Now, he goes for gold today in the Finn class, and what is particularly rare is it's guaranteed gold. He's got his medal race, but technically it doesn't even have to take part because he's got an unassailable 24-point lead. So dominant has his performance been over the last few days. Sir Ben Ainsley said he is in a position to dominate this sport for many years to come. There are further medal hopes in the laser class with Nick Thompson and Alison Young, both of them placed just outside the medals at the minute, but they could also be in a position to give some more medalling hopes for Britain by the end of the day. The one big problem we've got might be becalmed waters. The sailors were out on these waters yesterday, but the weather was still, by the time they got out, the winds were so strong they were forced back in, and there was some damage to the boats overnight. So the sailors don't go out for 2 or 3 hours yet. Hopefully the winds will pick up and we will get some action, some gold medal action for Britain.
Wira, thank you. Wira Davis there. And just a quick reminder, should you need it, you can follow all the Olympic action, of course, across the BBC. TV coverage has just begun today with programmes on BBC One, BBC Two and BBC Four. And Radio 5 Live will have live commentary. You can also watch a choice of sports on the BBC Sport website. Now we'll take a look at the rest of today's news. And inflation rose more than expected last month to 0.6%, according to the Office for National Statistics. It was pushed up by an increase in the cost of fuel and second-hand cars. Economists were expecting the figure to be unchanged from June's 0.5%. Our business correspondent Andy Verity has more.
What's Brexit got to do with the price of fish? At this Chessington-based food importer, the scale of the drop in the value of the pound is no joke.
This will be about a 240 gram pack. We could probably produce a pack like this for somewhere around about £4 a pack, and then the retailers will be selling this for anywhere between £5 and £7 a pack. Because the pound has fallen to a 30-year low, this firm needs more pounds to buy the same fish in dollars, euros or yen.
These yellowfin tuna fish are an example of post-Brexit inflation. They come from the Western Pacific Ocean and they're priced in Japanese yen. Since Brexit, they're costing 16% more than they were before. That price rise will feed through to consumers starting as soon as next month.
That inflationary effect of Brexit hasn't yet shown up in most consumer prices. On the official measure CPI, they're up by 0.6%, slightly higher than expected. But companies are now charging 0.3% more as the goods leave the factory, the first time producers have raised prices in 2 years. And companies are now paying 4.3% more to buy the materials they use. Before Brexit, they were getting cheaper. Importers like this one are now in talks with their customers, in this case the big supermarkets, about passing the extra cost on through higher prices. for the supermarkets to pay them and for us to pay the supermarkets.
We made £3 million on 90 million, so we make 3% margin. And the inflation that we're likely to experience is roughly 3.5 times the size of that profit. So clearly we have to re-engineer our offer, we have to pass on a big part of that inflation to our customers, and we have to work very closely with our customers to find ways of mitigating the inflation and hopefully keeping selling plenty of fish.
Having cut interest rates to the bone, the Bank of England's expecting that higher import costs will push up inflation only slowly. Other economists aren't so sure.
From 0.6% today, we expect inflation to move upwards pretty quickly, so to around 2%, which is the Bank of England's target by the end of the year, and then even higher from there to around 3% by the spring of next year, which is quite incredible given how very weak prices and inflation have been over recent years.
But today's biggest inflation number wasn't in fish or fuel, but house prices, up 8.7%, 4 times as fast as average earnings. Mortgage rates are low, but some economists fear that may simply push up prices even faster. Andy Verity, BBC News, Chessington.
Well, one of the measures of inflation has had an impact on regulated rail fares, which make up about half of all tickets, including season tickets on most commuter journeys. They will go up by 1.9% next year because they're linked to last month's retail price index measure of inflation, as Keith Doyle now explains.
The rail unions, along with the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, made the case for nationalisation at stations around the UK this morning, although some southern rail commuters just wanted to talk about delays and strikes.
Oh, but they're making it worse.
The TUC-led group, Action for Rail, says fares have gone up twice as fast as wages in the past 6 years. It says nationalisation would improve services and reduce fares.
If we had public ownership, we could also reduce fares. The evidence suggests that we'd save £1.2 billion a year, and that money could mean an 18% fare cut instead of year-on-year above inflation fare rises.
Fares will rise again in January, following the release of today's inflation figures. Ticket prices for regulated fares, which include season tickets in England, Scotland and Wales, will go up by the Retail Prices Index of 1.9%. That means an annual season ticket costing £5,000 will increase by £95 in January. That will be cheaper if the more widely accepted Consumer Prices Index was used.
Compared to a few years ago when the railway was was making a loss on a day-to-day basis, it's now covering its costs from fares. So all of the money from government is able to go into improving the railway and making better and better services.
The government says its commitment to cap rail fare rises in line with inflation will save annual season ticket holders £425 in the 5 years up to 2020, but that isn't any consolation to commuters.
I think it should be renationalised because the model of competition just doesn't work on the railways. There is no competition. You turn up, you have to get the train that's sent to your station.
Give it a go. You know, it obviously doesn't seem to be working at the moment.
I actually think they probably should nationalise them again because then at least we've got a guaranteed service again.
The government says passengers want more reliable journeys in comfort. The unions agree, but they say nationalisation is the way to achieve this. Keith Doyle, BBC News.
The time is 18 minutes past 1. Our top story this lunchtime. Cyclist Mark Cavendish finally wins an Olympic medal, the 41st for Team GB, who are still second in the medal table. And coming up, how will a new interactive dementia map help people being treated for the disease?
And in South today, we hear from a Dorset firm that's put plans to build a new factory on hold after blaming a sharp decline in orders on the Brexit vote. And reflecting on 15 years bringing up his boys alone, the father who chose surrogacy to have a family.
The number of patients in England waiting more than 18 weeks for planned surgery has risen by nearly 80%, according to new research. The Patients Association says delays are at their longest since it began collecting data 6 years ago. And it says thousands of people have their surgery cancelled on the day it's due to be carried out. The government says the figures are misleading. Sophie Hutchinson reports.
Farmer David Fernley is recovering after a hip replacement operation a month ago. He says he faced an agonising wait for the surgery, was referred to hospital twice and was eventually offered a last-minute cancellation.
Pain were getting worse all the time. I was going downhill pretty quick.
a couple of days when I could barely walk. Pain was so bad. We're on one kind of painkillers, then went on to another kind, and on them all day long. Trouble sleeping, everything.
Today's report by the Patients Association suggests average waiting times for planned surgery are getting longer in England. 78% of NHS hospital trusts contacted responded to the survey. Their results showed for 5 procedures, including hip, knee and hernia, average waiting times are now above 100 days. It's the 6th year the Patients Association has collected weights for these operations, and it's convinced the situation has deteriorated.
People contact us and tell us that they've been on the waiting list for several months and they've had no communication from the hospital or the trust. Now, these are people that are in pain and discomfort.
But the official NHS waiting time target is that 95% of patients are seen within 18 weeks from referral to treatment, and not the shorter 100 days. Today, the government heavily criticised the study. It said these claims are both unreliable and misleading. The latest official figures show that 9 in 10 patients still wait less than 18 weeks for treatment, despite the fact that last year the NHS carried out 1.6 million more operations than in 2010. The NHS is, however, missing its 18-week target, albeit slightly, and with the unprecedented pressure the health service is facing, longer waits seem here to stay for some patients. Sophie Hutchinson, BBC News.
A map showing which areas of England provide the best support for people with dementia has been put online today by the Department of Health. It reveals big variations in care in different parts of the country. The Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, says the map is designed to help drive up standards. Our health correspondent, Adam Brimlow, is with me to explain more. Talk us through why this has been produced, what it's all about, Adam.
Well, I think really it's been produced because dementia remains a priority. In England alone, we've got about 700,000 people with dementia. So where you get poor care, that affects a huge number of people, not only with dementia, but of course also their carers. So the Atlas looks at things like prevention, diagnosis rates, but also the quality of support that's provided as well. And it's revealing big discrepancies from one part of the country within England to another. So if you look just for one example at annual reviews of care, which are really important for people with dementia because it's a progressive disease, in some parts of the country these are happening in 85% of cases. In other parts of the country it's just 50% of cases. So that really identifies a problem.
So there's plenty of information there, but how does it actually practically help someone who has dementia or a member of their family?
I think what this does is it gives them some transparency. They may have had a very strong hunch that services were not good in their area, and this really provides hard evidence for them to really strengthen their arguments. And we know that it will provide the evidence also for the NHS in England to bear down on areas where the services are poorer, councils as well, so that the standards where places which are conspicuously below par are pushed up to the level of the rest.
Adam Brimlow, thank you. And just to tell you, you can find a link to that Dementia Atlas on the BBC website, bbc.co.uk/health. Donald Trump has outlined proposals to defeat what he calls radical Islamic terrorism if he's elected US president in November. The Republican candidate told a rally in Ohio that people from countries with a history of terrorism would be banned from entering the country, and anyone else would be subject to what he described as extreme vetting to ascertain that they embrace American values. Jane O'Brien reports from Washington.
Mr. Trump's first foreign policy speech as the Republican nominee focused squarely on what he calls radical Islamic terrorism, a war he wants to wage on multiple fronts, including ideological tests for immigrants.
I call it extreme vetting. I call it extreme vetting. Our country has enough problems. We don't need more, and these are problems like we've never had before.
In the last couple of weeks, Mr. Trump has picked a fight with the Muslim parents of an American soldier killed in Iraq and accused the president of creating terrorists.
I call President Obama and Hillary Clinton the founders of ISIS. They're the founders.
In spite of Mr. Trump's claims that America is no longer safe, there have been no known attacks in the US actually directed by Islamic State. However, high-profile mass shootings in California and Florida were said to be inspired by the terrorist organization. Many Americans agree with Mr. Trump's assessment of the nation's problems, but the polls show that more and more of them appear to think that a Trump presidency would only add to them. Jane O'Brien, BBC News, Washington.
Here, the combined pension deficit of the 100 biggest names on the stock market has more than doubled since last year to £63 billion. The consulting firm which calculated the figures said the pensions could become a drag on the economy. Our personal finance correspondent Simon Gompertz explains.
The dream retirement could be in danger. That's if shortfalls in pension schemes eventually have an impact on the people with the best company pensions, the ones based on their salaries.
Because of medical advances, better diet, health consciousness, people are living much longer. That means you're paying out the pensions for more.
The company I used to work for were apparently paying out 54% of total salaries was being spent on the pensions.
The companies have been using the pension fund to smooth out their cash flow.
Investments in the schemes are being blown away by the cost of future pensions. The biggest deficit at £7.6 billion is at BT, then Tesco, BAE and BP, all over £4 billion, feeding into a £63 billion pension gap for the top 100 companies. It goes wider than that. A pension deficit has put the future of the steel plant at Port Talbot in question. The government's proposing steel pensioners get lower annual increases than they were promised. And now there are calls for other troubled companies to be given an escape route as well.
You could allow employers to change the measure of inflation they use for increasing pensions from the retail price index to the consumer price index, which all public sector schemes already use and is the official measure. Or you could allow some employers, for example, to have a contribution holiday for a year or two.
Pension schemes use the prevailing level of interest rates to forecast whether their investments will yield enough over time to pay the pensions. And after the Bank of England cut interest rates yet again, the schemes are finding they are massively off target. But the collapse of BHS, with a big pension deficit, is causing some to question whether companies should be let off their promises. The former boss of Philip Green was criticised for taking huge dividends. Today's figures show top companies paid 5 times as much in dividends to shareholders than into their pensions.
It seems to me entirely wrong that pension scheme members should be expected to take a haircut when nobody else is, and in particular shareholders. So as far as I understand under this proposal, shareholders would continue to receive dividends, and that just seems to be wrong. The whole thing seems to me the thin end of a very nasty wedge.
The more companies get caught in the pension trap, the greater the fear that their troubles will have a knock-on effect on the economy. Simon Gompertz, BBC News.
On Sunday, Britain's Justin Rose became golf's first Olympic champion since 1904 after seeing off Sweden's Henrik Stenson in a thrilling final round. Justin Rose is now on his way back to the UK, but before he left Rio, Dan Walker caught up with him.
Hello. Hey, Dan. We are looking for a gold medalist, you know. Right here. How you doing, Great to see you. We've got you a sofa and everything. Oh, in the shade and everything. Come Lovely. and join us.
Justin Rose of Great Britain takes Olympic gold.
Mr. Rose, have you taken the medal off yet?
Briefly took it off to sleep, but it wasn't very far from me. It was on the bedside table.
You look back over the last few months, all the talk of Zika, all the talk of whether golf should be at the Olympics, all the talk of some of the big names not being here, that you're sitting here as an Olympic champion and everybody was desperate to watch the golf.
Yeah, honestly, it couldn't have been a better story, obviously for me. But the way the golf felt on Sunday, it was a packed-out crowd. I think they were even selling extra tickets. It seemed to be a really popular event, and a great showdown. Myself and Henrik going toe-to-toe right to the last hole.
Do you have a different complexion now on the fact that some of the big names weren't here?
Listen, what's made those guys great is that they're fierce competitors, and there's no doubt they've been sitting at home watching us play in front of a big crowd, in front of a huge TV audience, and that's what they love to do. So there's no doubt they're probably thinking, I could have, you know, that would have been an experience I would love to have been a part of.
There's a lot of money involved in golf. It wasn't about $1 million cheque or £1 million win bonus. It was about the pride of finishing first, and that's essentially what the Olympics and sport is all about.
Absolutely. It was sort of, you know, it almost takes you back to your junior days when you're playing for the love of the game, and, you know, there's nothing on the line other than winning. The only one I feel sorry for is my caddy. The first time I played really well this year, he doesn't make a check. You know, he's been playing the Spandau Ballet Gold song literally ever since we walked off the golf course. So.
Surely you can lend it to him. A day?
Yeah, no, that's all he's asked. He's asked for a day, so he'll certainly have it for a day.
Have you been in contact with any of the guys who didn't come? Have they sort of said, I wish I'd have been there or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I hope Rory doesn't mind me saying so, but yeah, Rory texted me, and he texted me just to say he was surprised to see how big the crowds were and how enthusiastic everyone looked. So, you know, he was saying that it looked like a huge success.
And final one, the significance of the major win, the Olympic gold medal.
It was kind of, to me, the representing your country part that made this so much different to a major championship and so much more special. And I felt that it was almost like a major championship and a Ryder Cup linked into one event, which made it so unique.
It's nice they're playing the national anthem behind us as well.
Break into
song.
song.
It's like it's meant to be. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Dan.
And, you know, you have embraced the Olympic Games, you've embodied the Olympic spirit, and now you are an Olympic champion.
Thank you, mate.
So much.
That means
Cheers.
a lot. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Justin Rose. Let's catch up with the weather, shall we? Jay Wynn has joined me. Hello.
Thanks, Jane. Good afternoon. And it is a lovely afternoon across many parts of the United Kingdom. This picture was taken not so long ago in Cumbria. Blue sky here, and that'll be similar for many of us, but not for all. There is a bit of patchy cloud across some eastern parts of England in particular, but it's going to stay fine and dry here. Now, you can see that patchy cloud just developing across East Anglia, up towards Lincolnshire, towards the London area as well, but many other places just enjoying a lot of sunshine. Now, our weather at the moment is being controlled by this area of high pressure across Scandinavia. Winds go clockwise around that high, just keeping those weather fronts at bay, at least for today. But that breeze is quite noticeable, particularly for some southern counties, the southwest of England, towards Northern Ireland. And that breeze is also coming in from the North Sea. So North Sea coastal counties, 18, 19 degrees. Head a bit further inland, it's the low 20s. Head further west, and we've got temperatures in the middle to upper 20s, somewhere probably getting to 27 or 28 degrees this afternoon. So very warm, and that sunshine is strong in late August. The north of England, well, the northwest sees temperatures a few degrees higher than the northeast, and across the large swathes of Scotland away from the eastern coast, temperatures are doing very well. Up around the Moray Firth, we'll see 24, 25 degrees, and not too far away from that in some parts of Northern Ireland. So a lovely warm afternoon for most places. The evening, pretty quiet really. Overnight, bit of mist and fog will form in a few places. By dawn, though, just about everywhere is dry. And major town cities will be in the range of, say, 12 to 15 or 16 degrees. But some rural spots in northern England northwards probably dipping down to, 7 or 8 degrees. But a lovely start to the day on Wednesday. Lots of sunshine. And for many central and eastern areas, we'll keep that. Further west, we are going to see some rain just drifting its way into Northern Ireland, maybe fringing into the west of Scotland, western parts of Wales, the southwest of England through the afternoon. Temperatures will be that bit lower underneath the cloud and the rain, 19, 20 degrees, but with the sunshine further east, it looks like it'll be the East Midlands that'll see the highest temperatures, 27 or 28 degrees, and the Moray Firth doing quite well once again in the middle 20s. And then through Wednesday evening and on into Thursday morning, the small hours of Thursday, we see some rain across Wales and southern counties of England, still some rain in the northwest, but generally through Thursday, any rain that we see in the morning tends to become light and patchy into the afternoon, most of us drying up. And temperatures dipping back a few degrees, but still quite warm in the southeast at 24 degrees. But that downward trend in temperatures continues into Friday. Rain will sweep its way from the southwest of the UK towards the northeast, and the winds will be picking up as well. In fact, by the start of the weekend, we've got some gales in the forecast really across Wales and the southwest of England, unseasonably windy for the time of the year. And it will be a weekend of sunshine and showers. It's going to feel a little bit cooler as well. Low 20s at the very best.
All right, Jay, thank you. And that is it on BBC One now. It's time for the news wherever you are. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.